All right. They're both, cameras are rolling. It sounds good. So I just proceed, whatever.
Hi, I'm Dennis Crawford. I'm the second associate chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party. I want to welcome our viewers to the...
Let you start over.
Okay.
Just instead of that one little glitch.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dennis Crawford. I'm the second associate chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party. I want to welcome our viewers to the second edition of the Prairie Populist, and today we have the distinct honor and privilege of interviewing Dick Holland. Dick is a successful businessman, investor, and philanthropist and political activist. Mr. Holland's been active in the Nebraska political scene for decades and has made a very positive impact both in the political scene and in the world of philanthropy. Thank you for agreeing to the interview today, Dick. It's a distinct pleasure to meet you and interview you. It's my understanding that you grew up and you're educated in Omaha?
Yes, man. I mean, yes, I was. Oh, yeah, I lived here all my life.
Okay.
I lived here all my life.
You went to Central High School and then the University of Omaha?
Yes.
Okay. And then you served in World War II?
Yes.
Okay. And what years did you serve in World War II?
1942 to 1946.
Okay. And what branch of the service were you in?
A chemical warfare service.
Okay. And what theater of operations did you serve in?
North Africa and Italy.
Okay. And then when you returned from the service to Omaha, what did you do after that?
I went back to school and finished my education. And then I joined my father, who had a little tiny advertising agency, and he died shortly after that, and I took over from then on.
Okay. And what kind of accounts did you have at the advertising agency?
Mostly industrial. I'd had a major in chemistry and physics and math, and I had switched to art and writing because of the war. And well, one of our largest accounts was Valmont Industries.
Mm-hmm.
And I was instrumental. I think I was pretty instrumental in helping them build the acceptance of that product. And of course, today it's changed the world.
Mm-hmm. Did your advertising firm eventually become one of the most prominent advertising firms in the Midwest?
Yes. We ranked high on the scale of industrial advertising agencies. I think at one point we're 6th in the country.
And did your advertising agency take on some accounts for some political campaigns here in Nebraska?
Oh, yes.
Okay, what campaigns did your agency get involved in?
Well, the presidential campaign of 1952, we represented Senator Kerr of Oklahoma. We also represented Jim Green for senator. And I always remember it because we took the music out of one of the Broadway plays at the time, which was Wintergreen for president, and we just put in green.
Okay. Now, did your advertising firm also do some work for Bob Kerrey and Jim Exon's campaigns?
Yep.
What kind of work did you do for Kerrey and Exon?
Well, we handled all their advertising. You know, we just worked for them. You know.
Obviously, very successful campaigns.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you became acquainted with Warren Buffett?
Early on, about 1960.
How'd you get to know Warren?
59 or 58. Oh, I don't know, just same social gatherings and that kind of thing. And he was much younger than I was, but we hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw things the same way a lot. And of course, Warren is a remarkable person and figure and mind. He has ways of thinking that few people have, and depth of thinking, and also enormous ability to kick out the clutter.
And so you decided to invest with Berkshire Hathaway?
Yes.
Okay. And
well, actually, I invested in the in the Buffett partnership, which contained Berkshire Hathaway.
Okay. Now, were you the one that introduced Warren Buffett to Charlie Munger?
That's what I think.
Okay.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, we had a party here at the house one night, and Charlie and Warren sat right over here and stayed there all night long talking. Charlie had come down the street while I was mowing the grass, and I hadn't seen him for a while. He and I had gone to the same church where he'd called me an acolyte. But I just said that we're having this party, and I'd like him to meet a guy, and which was Warren, and come on over, and sure enough.
So we can say that you helped form up the successful partnership of Buffett and Munger, then a major event in
yeah,
in
I
modern
don't want to take too much credit. They did that themselves.
Obviously a very successful partnership. And Warren Buffett, he's one of the people I admire the most. I mean, he is obviously an investment and business genius, but at the same time, he has a very open-minded, broad-minded view to the overall good of the economy. He believes that if everybody has a shot, then everybody succeeds, including the wealthy, that we should just not limit success to the wealthy. He can see the big picture, and that's something I really admire about Warren Buffett.
I do too.
I mean, he sees the big picture, and a lot of people who are wealthy just can't see that, you know.
They're hopeless.
Yeah. The Republicans kind of fancy themselves as a party of the so-called job creators or business. I mean, doesn't our own party have a lot of successful business owners, including yourself and Warren Buffett?
Well, of course. The question of who creates jobs is one that's not really understood very well. The federal government, despite what the Republicans say, creates jobs. And the state government, despite anything they say, creates jobs. I don't know, there's something like 24 million people working for governments in the United States. Job creation is also a process of taxation. If you keep taxes in an organized, not an organized, but in a steady flow upward, and make sure that the lower part of it doesn't become impoverished by them, then you create you know, what the heck, a very poor man is a job creator in the sense that he buys things. And the next guy up the line is the same kind of guy. It's wrong to think that somehow some guy is a job creator, or all of them, all businessmen are job creators. Some businessmen, particularly those in the sciences and in technology, who come up with the great ideas which are changing our society, they are job creators. A lot of them are Democrats.
Yeah. I would submit that the job creators are the middle class. 70% of economic activity is generated by consumer spending.
Yes.
And you're not going to have job creation without a healthy, prosperous middle class buying the goods and the services of the so-called job creators. We're not dependent upon the top 1 or 2% of the economy in order to succeed as a country. It depends upon all of us, and the government plays an important role too.
Yeah, the Republicans have lost track of that. We now have a great poor class, and we have a weak middle class. And those have all been created by taxation, which tended to help the wealthy and to limit the ability of the poor to rise.
We've had a rising trend of inequality in this country over the last 30 years. We have the greatest level of inequality in this country since 1929, and it's, in my opinion, no coincidence we had an economic collapse in 2008, similar to the one that we saw in 1929 and 1930. What government policies do you believe in the last 30 years have contributed to this rising level of inequality in America?
Well, I think you have to go to 1980, really, because after World War II, there was a steady rise for everybody. But in 1980, we elected Ronald Reagan, who's one of the heroes of the Republican Party. But they also passed tax legislation, which was based on a silly thing called the Laffer curve, which said if you reduce taxes for the wealthy, you'd create so much in investment that you'd overcome them. And never was a thing more false. And by the time the Reagan administration got out of office, they had raised the national debt from $900 billion to almost $3 trillion. Nobody talks about that very much, but it was the beginning of the disasters that led to where we are now.
Yeah, even the Heritage Foundation, a right-wing think tank financed by corporations, has said that tax cuts don't pay for themselves. They contribute to the deficit, as we saw under Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush. What role do you believe that deregulation played in leading to this trend in inequality since the early 1980s?
Well, it depends upon the industry, but or the kind of work you do, because deregulation also implies wage control, and I think the better way to maybe even think about is that in the process of the Reagan years, we also refused to advance the minimum wage in line with inflation. And when you do that, and it's never caught up, today at 7.25, it is not where it ought to be. I mean, I guess it should be at about 11. And that refusal, to do that is a major factor in the impoverishment of middle class and lower class people. I mean, they just plain ignore the breadwinners. It's hard to understand. I'll tell you, it's harder to understand why anybody votes for them.
Well, I think probably why a lot of people vote for him is they build up this alternative reality through Fox and Rush Limbaugh, and I've watched Fox and listened to Limbaugh as for opposition research, I like to call it. Mm-hmm. And if you watch Fox or listen to Limbaugh, you believe that deregulation and big tax cuts for the wealthy, create prosperity for all Americans. But recent history completely debunks that notion. I mean, the Bush tax cuts were a failure, for example.
Well, when I talk to anybody that's on the other side, other than the wealthy, I always ask them the question, who do you think really cares about you? Who thinks about your problem and cares about your needs? And, we can go over a long list, starting with Social Security, the control of the financial departments, decent labor laws so people could get decent wages, Medicare, Medicaid, the new health law. I mean, it's just almost and the interesting thing about this whole thing is that none of this is a reflection of any Republican. It's a reflection of the Democratic Party historically. And when I find out that a lot of people in rural Nebraska are voting Republican, I'm willing to send a psychiatrist to find out what the hell is going on with them.
Well, I think that's probably a good suggestion, but probably we Democrats need to do a better job of getting out our message. Unfortunately, out in the rural areas, Fox and Rush Limbaugh kind of dominate the discussion out there. And I think as Democrats, we need to do a better job of getting our message out and letting Nebraskans know that they may not know, but I think majority of Nebraskans agree with us on economic issues.
Well, there's no doubt that we don't do a good job. The Democratic Party has never had enough the kind of money that the Republicans have had because they're wealthy. Then on top of that, the silly Supreme Court decision denying the idea that we should put some controls on corporate gifting and so on has added to the problem. The last election was a travesty in terms of allowing people to communicate, or allowing any sort of what you call equal communication.
Yeah, the United Citizens decision created a bizarre new system through an activist decision of $1, one vote instead of one person, one vote. And you have this bizarre system where campaign finance is essentially deregulated for the super wealthy, but everybody else has to comply with a number of regulations on how much they can give and disclosing it. So it's a completely bizarre system created by 5 Republican appointees in the Supreme Court that no elected branch of the government would have ever passed such a campaign finance scheme. It was just absolutely ridiculous, and it just came out of nowhere.
Well, I don't know what to do except wait for some of them to leave and hope we have a Democratic president. That would change society. I want to go back to a little thing about the problems of lower classes. Slowly but surely, we tax them more. You know, when the Social Security taxes came out to begin with, you know, there was 0.5%, I believe. Today it's 6.4%. And that's a regressive tax upon anybody with a very low income. On top of that, the nation has developed regressive taxations on sales. And they range from anywhere from 6.5% to 10%. If you live in the city of Chicago right now, you pay 10%. And of course, you all pay all the fees that everybody else pays, which are also regressive. And the net effect is that a poor person is practically being taxed the same as Warren Buffett or any other wealthy person who's taking advantage of particularly the tax on capital gains.
Yeah, this is something the Nebraska Republican Party actually supports. In a recent interview with the Lincoln Journal-Star Republican National Committee man David Kramer said that we should begin to tax the 47% of Americans that don't pay federal income taxes. But as you pointed out, those 47% pay a lot of regressive sales taxes and Social Security taxes. So apparently the Nebraska Republican Party believes those people are undertaxed, are undertaxed, and the wealthy are overtaxed. I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense.
Well, hell, well, hell.
Say whatever you want, Dick.
They're trying to abandon the tax on the death taxes. I hate that word. What kind of taxes are those called?
Estate tax.
Oh, they're trying to abandon the estate tax, and that's clearly an attempt to just help the wealthy.
Right. The Farm Bureau was once asked how many farms have been sold to pay the estate tax, and the Farm Bureau said they had no evidence of any farm ever being sold in the history of the Republic to pay off the estate tax. So it's just a complete myth.
Yeah. Well, even the recent taxes established by Obama and company with the Republicans have helped the estate tax, raised it the exemption to back to 5 million. That practically assures that most people will not pay much of the estate tax unless you're super wealthy.
That's correct. That was part of the fiscal cliff deal.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears to education and education policy. What role do you believe that education has in creating poverty in America, and what role can education play to, reduce or perhaps eliminate poverty in the United States? You've been very passionate about education over the years.
Well, I regard the problems of education for the poorer people as a national disaster. We have not paid any attention, or we have paid little attention to the real reason why. The real reason why is poverty itself, which creates a society that most people haven't ever been around or ever seen, which is simply that they do not have money enough to lead decent lives. And I get mad when I hear them blaming teachers and that kind of stuff, because the real answer is to adopt policies which give 100% prenatal care to everybody, a system of early childhood care that begins at 0 and continues to age 6 or 7, that is free to those who cannot afford it, and that is high quality. It is not just a system using minimum wage people. It must be first class, so that we establish one thing early, which is a child is readily admitted to kindergarten as fully ready. And I can practically guarantee to anybody that a child judged ready for kindergarten is a high school graduate, and some of them are, of course, college graduates. But when you bring a child to a school, public school, or I don't care what kind of a school, who's not ready, you have set the trap of dropouts and crime and social problems. And we may not be paying for it on this end, but we sure as hell are paying for it on the other end,
right,
in large numbers. Well, all you have to do is look at the prison system and look at how much money we put out in social services of various kinds. And hell, it's plain. I mean, that's the way I mean, it's awful. Now, there are a lot of little reasons in the background of this which relate to the fact that many of the poor are Latino and black, and we have a bad habit of forgetting that they are members of our society. Well, the thing I think about is that if we go down the track for a few years and we do not do more than we're doing now, we are going to have so many people in prison and so many people who don't provide anything to help the society in which they live. We're going to be asking ourselves serious questions about the future of the country. In fact, I think at the present time it endangers the future of a growing society. It's changing. It's the way things are different than when you grew up, or anybody else that was born in the 1940s or 50s or 30s and so on. It's a highly different world.
A much more stratified society.
Yes.
With a weak middle class, and it's like evolving towards something out of South America or the Third World.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to. I mean, I'm chairman of a group called Building Bright Futures.
All right. Tell us about that. I was about ready to ask you about that.
And over a period of about 7 years, we've learned a lot. And I just enunciated that when I said that we do not look after our children anything close to the way they are, the way we should be. Building Bright Futures focuses on early childhood care. We also focus on trying to help kids who are promising to get them through high school and to help them into college. And we have a system, or into trades, to learn how to do something. And I think we involve, probably 6,000 or 7,000 kids at the present time.
Here in the Omaha area?
Yeah. And we have had some success. We have had some disappointments. We have learned a lot. And that's one of the reasons we were spending more and more on early childhood. Because it will make the greatest difference in the shortest period of time.
Make it more likely that kids stay out of trouble, get through school, graduate from high school.
Yeah. And this is a long-term project. You don't do this overnight. I mean, it's well, for one thing, you got the whole period of 5 years of growing up to be a student. They have another, what you call primary grades, then high school, and so on. we have a good group called Avenue Scholars, which is part of Building Bright Futures. They're doing a remarkable job with some of these kids that most of the society had given up on. But it has its problems too. I mean, not all kids are savable. And that's the saddest part of all.
Yeah. Have some of the kids gone away through high school and then through college with the help of Building Bright Futures?
Yes.
How many kids have you helped?
Oh, man. Well, we got 1,500 kids under scholarships at the present time. Now, I compare that to the famous organization up here called Exarban, who have 40. That's how the wealthy think they're doing their job.
You've been very generous in your donations to educational endeavors and causes. You've also been very generous in your donations to the UN Med Center and to the arts here in the Omaha area. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, overnight, under new leadership, and I say overnight because they changed the University of Nebraska Med Center from an almshouse into a national power in terms of medical research and hospital care. And they are continuing to build. And build they will. And they are getting more and more top-flight research people to come in. You know, they're involved in regenerative medicine, the business of manufacturing parts for the body. They're involved in embryonic and other stem cell research. They're right now in the process of trying a vaccine against Parkinson's disease. And that attracts me. So
it certainly
I
does.
let go of some of my glue.